Hello, my name is host Eric, and I'm the host of Talking with Famous People. And tonight we're going to talk about INFP, love advice, who's your match, how to make it work, even though it's hard for you guys sometimes. Okay, so to the INFP population, I always split them in two. The female INFP population, I believe I understand better than I understand the male INFP population. Most INFPs are female. That doesn't mean there are not male INFPs out there. Certainly there are. And I don't know any, as far as I know, really. I don't think I do. Maybe there's one guy who was around here that I knew that seemed pretty INFP-ish. Neptune says he's an INFP, but I don't know if I buy it. I don't think so. Nah, it's hard to tell with him. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not talking about dude INFPs. That's the point. I'm going to talk about chick INFPs because I understand it better. So, this relationship advice is specifically for chick INFPs. Who should you get with? Who will actually make you happy? Who will care enough about your feelings and also not care so much about you doing shit and stuff like that. The thing about INFPs is they're fantastic people to be around, frankly. When you get a healthy one, they're great. You know, I always love it when Kit Kat used to come around a lot. She always added a different angle to intuition, extrovert intuition, that I appreciated a great deal. It was sort of more grounded in the visual world. Anyway, NFPs bring a certain amount of magic to any occasion, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're a good way to, or a good match for somebody who's looking for high achievement in some regard. They're not particularly high achieving, and the reason for that is they're flighty like the ENTP, but their third slot TE, ultimately the ENFP for ENFP third slot TE, INFP fourth slot TE, it just doesn't overcome the other disadvantages that they have in terms of putting a handle on shit. So INFP with fourth slot TE, they're seeking it. Even when they receive it, though, they're not necessarily going to be effective on a across time level. So it's like TE is much more effective in very limited goals than it is in big life goals. So if you want to clean up this place, TE is very effective. If you want to organize the place smartly so you don't keep banging into the table when you go into that room, TE is very effective. If you want to be smart about starting a task, you'll put the shit in the back of the room. Like, you know, if you're loading up a room like this garage with stuff, you'll put all the stuff in the back of the garage first before you put it in the front of the garage. That's just good civil TE, right? Well, the problem is INFP has to get all of their action from two spots. They get it from SI, remembering to make sure they're comfortable, and remembering to do things that help them to stay comfortable, and from TE, which they seek because they can do it, but only when pressure's put on them, or they can have it supplied for them, which they gratefully receive. So you've got those are their ways of taking action. Ultimately, with the TE, they don't use it much to take action because they just ideate about it because the NE comes in the second slot. So that means they come with lots of ideas about TE, but they don't actually follow through on them because, number one, they only can spend so much energy ideating about TE because they don't like TE because they seek it, they're not trying to do it themselves. And number two, it gets interrupted with their need to periodically attend to their own comfort in SI. Now, to complicate matters further, then, their dominant function is introverted feelings, which means they're existing in a world that's much less stable than one of, say, the INTP, who has introverted thinking, which is fundamentally objective and stable, provided you get a handle on relative absolutes versus absolutes, you know, and just basically once you understand the difference of conditionality and causality and stuff like that. But INFP has FI as the dominant function, and that is a burdensome function to be paired with any. I watch Katie. I've been hanging out with Katie a fair amount because, you know, she's staying with us, and her FI is burdensome to her. She carries a lot of suffering if she allows herself to experience it. She, however, has SE in the second slot, so she knows how to just do shit and be in the moment, stuff like that. But INFP doesn't. They're like me, ideation, neurotic and stuff, but they got nothing solid really to hang on to because TI is not, it's 8th slot, it's unconscious, it's the enemy. The reason it's the enemy, FI is about what you want, even when it's not fair or logical or reasonable. TI is about how what you want is not fair, logical, or reasonable. They're in inherent conflict with each other. INFPs are smart. There's plenty of them who, my friend Liz, who's an INFP, is one of the smartest people I've met in terms of all sorts of like tests of intelligence you can put somebody through. And she'd beat me at all sorts of like intelligence-y games and stuff. It's frustrating. It was really frustrating. Anyway, but she doesn't value it, and she doesn't use it when it comes to making decisions at all. So this is the trouble that INFP has in looking for a relationship. Now, what they do know, and the advantage they have, is FI. The problem is, one of the things they get more than anybody else is that relationships develop over time, and they don't really know somebody until they've known them for a long time. And they don't really know how they feel about them until they've known them for a long time. In the modern world, most people don't want that kind of development arc in a relationship. They either want to hit it and quit it, or they're relationship-y. If they're relationship-y, they want to lock you down right now. They want 100% certainty if they're like me. Or they're like, okay, well, are we serious? Or blah, blah, blah. If they're not relationship-y, then they're just trying to get laid anyway. Now, INFP, in general, is not comfortable with that. They don't want to just get laid because they're in a world of introverted feelings. And to them, it's about feeling together with your partner, commonality. So, my final suggestion to end this video before I open it to the floor a little bit and see if anybody else has any comments, especially Neptune, who self-identifies as INFP, is I would suggest to an INFP chick, you need to find somebody who is an FI user, probably higher in the stack than 4th. I know sociology says duality. My own experience with duality is fuck yeah, duality, but I don't think it works for INFP ESTJ, and I think INFP needs more moisture than that from the other. And so, well, the thing is, INFPs do get their feelings hurt And the problem is, if you hurt their feelings, whether what you said actually was hurtful or whether it was just a statement of fair reality or something like that, doesn't make any difference, then they start to not like you. Every time you hurt their feelings, they carry a little burden of not liking you with them. Then has to be time soaked out with love time to get rid of it, so that they're back in love with you again. I mean, they're still in love with you the whole time, but it's like they carry these things with them in little sections of the self. You have to be careful with INFPs. You have to be careful with FI DOMs in general. You don't have to be nearly as careful with ENFPs, second slot FI, or ESFPs, second slot FI. They're much more toolish about it, but you really do need to be careful with INFPs. And if you hurt their feelings, they're going to carry with them, and it's going to be a weight on them in the relationship. Problem is, few relationships get started from a position of knowledge. I'd advocate that everybody enter them really thinking about this shit, frankly. Open the floor to Neptune first view. Will have any comments, more questions, or thoughts, or critiques?
I disagree about the ENFP thing. You still have to be pretty careful.
You disagree about the ENFP? You still have to be pretty careful? Okay. Probably.
FI with TI polar?
Well, I mean, you're going to fight with them, but you don't have to be as careful. It's like they don't carry the butt hurt as much, is what I'm saying. And the thing is, the ENTP is kind of carried around. And we got 7 slot FI, so you never know. I mean, it depends.
I think they carry it around, but then they like bottle it up, and then it all explodes.
It plays out differently at different times. I don't know. Maybe because I'm constantly thinking about it. It's weird to analyze my own behaviors because I kind of can't get away with anything anymore. Like, I can't get away with anything. It's weird.
What are you trying to get away with?
Well, it's like I used to make lots of arguments, and they'd be mood driven. You know, it's like it would really be my mood and pushing the point. I'd win and feel like, you know, I'd done something. But now I just think, I see it purely as a critique of my own decision making. Like, once again, I'm allowing mood to drive my behavior rather than will. And I kind of see metacognition's point as enabling individuals to exercise actual will, which generally, without metacognition, I think people don't do very often. I don't think I do it very often. I'm not even sure I know what I mean, but it seems as though there's got to be some connection between understanding one's own preconditioned behavioral inclinations or something and liberating oneself from their constraints to a certain extent. Or if not that, then perhaps will is just the aware, developed, and developing. Observational capacity of one's own agency. That sounds good, pretty right. It's like observational carrying capacity. How much metaphysical can you carry? The more you meaning pack into like systems and time objects and structures and metastructures and shit, you increase your carrying capacity because you've just compressed everything. It's like you zip drived everything. I mean, you zip filed everything. But I don't know what the purpose of that would be exactly, except simply to be more agential, more agent-like.
It sounds like you're using a lot of words to say something simple.
I mean, I'm not using a lot of words. I'm slowly picking them. What I'm trying to say is people have an ongoing conversation about free will that says, on the one hand, determinism, because we are creatures of our own nature, such that that which has come before our nurturing environment in conjunction with a fixed nature means our behaviors and the things we do are necessary outcomes of hugely complex systems rather than choices. On the other hand, you have various arguments against determinism. You have few arguments in favor of vigorous free will. You know, it's not really. People go, well, no determinism, but that doesn't mean really free will. Well, what is the illusion of free will then? It's something I've been thinking about since I was like 4 years old. I mean, it's the earliest philosophical question I remember thinking about is free will. Could I have not jumped over this driveway? Well, the answer to it, of course, is it's a conditionality causality conflation. That's what it's a mistake of words. So you're saying I have free will because I have conditionality. That's how I know I have free will, because I can conditionally do things. Now, causality is the end of conditionality. So you'll never witness free will in the causal realm because free will implies conditionality. In other words, I could have done something else. Causality is the exclusion of conditionality, that's the exclusion of free will being a conceptual, a metaphysical fiction, a legal fiction of sorts, that represents how conditionality enables us to be deliberative about actions that impact causally. There. That's the answer.
But something causal. Why can't you see that as free will, even if it's stupid?
Well, because free will is a status you're going to assign to something. Either like, in other words, we assign blame to people, which implies that they chose to do something bad and deserve to be punished for it. But the thing is, the reason we know they could choose to do something bad is because we know they could have, they had the capacity to engage with the action conditionally. So there's all sorts of rules, exceptions that we make in the law to say, well, it was an accident. He just went like this with his hand. He didn't know that the guy with the recently fractured skull that was super fragile still was standing right there. And so when he refractured his skull and killed him by just going like this, pointing over there. Oh, Elm Street is over there. Oops. Oh, I killed that guy. That's not murder, you know? Why? It's a question that has it supervenes on, or whatever, the issue of free will. It's like, it's not murder because he didn't will it. In other words, he had no capacity for conditionality. He didn't have a chance to go, okay, well, if I swing my hand over there, then what was going to happen? And if I don't swing my hand over there, what's going to happen? And if I swing my hand in this direction instead, what's going to happen? Because he didn't know the guy was there, and he was just pointing. Right? It was just an accident. It requires knowledge of forethought. So,
yeah.
I think that's a good answer, right? That's a good answer. As good as any
It is,
other.
but you're right. But it can be argued back and forth, and it's not necessary.
Well, I think that's sort of contained within that answer as well. Is that it's the free will is a term we use to describe our ability to use conditionality before causality.
Yes.
That's such a good definition. Oh my God. Good job. Are we
If
making
you
a
need
video?
to think about it.
Were we making a video?
Yes.
Right. What is it
That
about?
whole thing is part of a video.
What was it about?
I don't remember.
Okay, well,
about
it's a great
INFPs.
video anyway. I'm sure you loved it. It was fantastic. We stayed on topic, for sure.